So why are we here in this space? We have a couple of reasons. Obviously, we want to support women who are going through something that we went through.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have a different nuance to our why
Yes.
that we
Yeah.
want to share as well. So I guess we'll start with our stories of IVF. And when we went into IVF, we did ours first, probably a year before you.
Yeah.
And we met with our doctor. We were coming up with our plan, and we were very clearly told, you're going to be lucky if you get 4 good embryos from this round, which I'm thinking we really want 4 kids. So, okay, maybe that'll work out. And again,
Yep.
it's just funny because in my mind of like knowing nothing, I'm thinking we're going to get 4 and have 4 kids. And that's just not how it goes anyways.
Yep.
But regardless, that was our process.
Yep.
And imagine our surprise then once we actually do IVF and we get 11 good eggs, fertilize all of them, and end up with 9. Our first response and emotion was joy. I mean, we're just thrilled that we have something, because your biggest fear is that you'll get nothing. That's the big fear.
Yeah.
But very quickly following that emotion was panic of, I don't want 9 kids.
Yeah.
And we had already said that whatever we get, we're going to use because we had convictions about that, just between morals and ethics and thinking through what we wanted to do. That's how we felt. But in our minds, we were thinking of what our doctor said of, well, we'll use all 4.
Yeah.
And not that we would have 9. And so right out the gate, we were presented with a dilemma that would really follow us through our entire journey.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think when you're presented, when that dilemma hits, you think, well, we'll cross the bridge when we come to it.
You have to.
That's just what we had to do, because otherwise we were too scared.
Well, there's so much unknown. Like
Yes.
there's no way for me to know how this is going to play out. And I can worry myself to death now about what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Yep.
But I have zero control. I have no idea what's going to happen or what's going to work, what's not going to work. So there was definitely, I remember having this conversation with people and just saying, like, I can't think about it. Like I have to cross that bridge when I come to it, because I don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to handle it.
Yeah. And our journey was similar, but even more on steroids, if you will. But we, when we did IVF, we got 31, our doctor got 31 eggs, which is almost laughable, because that was just not even what was presented to us or what we thought. Everything they were telling us was like maybe 15, 10 eggs under in that area. And so only 17 of them were viable eggs that could be fertilized. And then we ended up with 14 viable embryos. And so that was just like, again, joy initially. Like we have something, we are closer to that baby that our hearts have been desiring, but oh my goodness, this is not what I expected. And that was just shocking for both of us, because that's just not how they're presenting it to us. So the rate of decrease that they were telling us would happen was just like, you might get 10, you might have 8 that are viable eggs, and then you might end up with like the 4 embryo situation. And that's just what they kept telling us. And so we believed that, we were on board with that. And both of our situations were like, not and that situation of 4 embryos does happen for people, lot, or even actually. Less. Even we know people that have gotten 2 embryos
or
none. And so you just don't know.
I don't feel like they were lying to us. I feel like that is a scenario that plays out very often.
Yes.
That just was not at all either of our experiences.
Yeah. So it was shocking, and part of it was we have to just put this in the back of our mind and shelve it for now.
So this put both of us into a position that set our journey up for something we were not at all expecting, truly that we didn't want, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was a very long road for me. My journey is now complete. We used all of our embryos, and it is interesting how it works out, because we only were able to get 3 healthy children from those embryos that we had. And there were different things in there medically and medication issues and all of that played a role. Yeah. But it kind of thrust us into this journey that we just struggled, and Jess is still in that journey now of working through.
We're still here. We're still in it. We've had losses and fails, and still have embryos to use, and it's feeling daunting and challenging. For us, we are in our mid to late 30s.
Mid.
And so mid, let's just stick with that. And it's, you know, for us, I think neither of us expected it to go on this long. You know, you're thinking when you go through a couple years of infertility, that already kind of puts you in a category of having kids maybe a little bit later than you had anticipated. So then you start thinking like, well, I just have to do these back to back to back to back. I've got to get through this because I'm getting older. And, you know, as my age goes up, the chance of success probably decreases. And so you put yourself through a lot, and it's hard from a financial perspective. It's really challenging. There's expenses every time, medication standpoint, what you're putting your body through, and your heart of you feel hope every single time. And so then you have to process that emotion, and it's hard no matter what. And just going through the process and use of embryos is challenging.
And so this is a big part of our why, because we would both say that although we don't regret things, because obviously we have our kids and we know that the Lord's going to use this, and the point, what's the point of regretting? Like, we can't change anything. However, I would definitely say, I think we both feel if we could go back and do it over again, we would both still choose IVF, but we would choose it in a different way that took out some of those moral implications and struggles. And again, it's just things we didn't know. I mean, starting out IVF, we knew what our doctors told us. Neither of us had known anybody else who had done IVF. So we just didn't have a lot of resources. We were prayerful. We did have conversations about the moral, ethical side of things, but just the information. I mean, again, you have to remember this was 10 years ago. So what's out now wasn't out then.
Yeah.
And so I think our hope now is to share so that the younger generations that are struggling with this and are diving into this IVF route could maybe learn from our experiences and do things a little bit differently, so they don't end up in the long game of having to make difficult decisions and feeling like, you know, we have these embryos that we weren't planning for and now we need to decide what to do with them.